There's a moment in every founder's journey where what you made successful becomes the very thing that starts to limit your growth. It doesn't happen overnight and it doesn't announce itself clearly. There's no single failure point or dramatic breaking point. Instead, it shows up quietly. Growth slows, decisions stack up, and the business starts to feel heavier instead of freer. Most founders don't realize what's happening until the pressure has already become too much to handle. I'm Kaiser, and I've spent the last 24 years building businesses, including building a franchise brand from scratch and scaling it to over 100 franchise territories in just 3 years before an acquisition. Across every company that I've built and every founder that I've worked with, I've seen the same inflection point appear again and again. It's the moment when the founder must stop being the smartest person in the room. In the early stages of a business, being the smartest person in the room is an advantage. You know the product better than anyone. You understand the customer better than anyone. You can see around the corners. Your speed, your intuition, and your judgment. That's everything that allows the business to exist at all. Without that level of founder involvement, the company never survives its first few years. So naturally, founders learn to trust themselves. And that trust is earned. But the skills that create a business are not the same skills that scale one. As the company grows, something subtle begins to shift. Decisions start routing to you by default. Questions start coming to you that shouldn't require your involvement. People hesitate to move forward without your approval. And even if you're never asked for this, the organization learns one unspoken rule. Progress requires the founder. Now, at first, this feels like leadership. You feel needed, you feel relied upon, you feel like the glue that's holding everything together. But over time, what feels like leadership becomes dependency, and dependency is the enemy of scale. This is where most founders get stuck, because letting go doesn't feel like leadership. It feels like risk. It feels like lowering standards. It feels like losing control, especially for founders whose identity is built around being capable, competent, and decisive. The business rewarded you for being the smartest person early on, so it's natural to believe that staying that way is what's going to protect it. But here's the truth that most founders avoid. If your business can't make good decisions without you, it's not scalable. It might be profitable, and it might be growing, and it might even look impressive from the outside. But structurally, it's a house of cards, because anything that depends on one person's judgment is only as scalable as that person's time and energy. Real scale requires a shift from being the best operator to being the best architect. An operator solves problems. An architect, though, designs systems so that the same problems don't keep showing up. Operators rely on judgment. Architects rely on structure. Operators create value through action. Architects create value through design. This shift is not about ego. It's about math. One person can only make so many decisions in a day. A well-designed system can make thousands. Most founders try to delegate before they make this shift, and that's where things break. They hand off responsibility without redesigning the system. They expect people to figure it out the same way they did. They delegate outcomes, but not decision frameworks, and then results slip. They pull everything back to themselves, reinforcing the belief that no one else can do it right. This creates a dangerous, vicious cycle. The founder becomes more involved. The team becomes less confident. Decision velocity slows, and the business becomes increasingly dependent on the very person that it's supposed to scale beyond. Over time, the founder feels trapped. The team feels held back, and growth feels exhausting. In franchising, this problem is amplified. A franchise system can't be built around the intelligence or the intuition of one individual. Franchisees don't scale on inspiration. They scale on clarity. They don't need access to the founder's brain. They need repeatable systems, clear standards, and predictable decision-making. If franchisees require constant interpretation, exceptions, or the founder involvement to succeed, the system's incomplete. And incomplete systems don't scale, they fracture. This is also where founders misunderstand decision speed. Early in a business, speed's an advantage. Moving creates fast momentum, but at scale, speed without structure creates chaos. Great founders eventually learn that decision quality matters more than decision velocity. They slow down just enough to design decisions properly, and then they let the system move fast without them. The founders who scale successfully make a conscious decision to stop being the smartest person in the room and start being the one who builds the room. They hire people who are better than them in specific functions. They allow decisions to be made without their involvement. They invest in documentation. They invest in training, and they invest in leadership layers long before it feels comfortable. And they accept the temporary loss of control in exchange for the long-term leverage. They understand that control is not the same thing as quality, and presence is not the same as leadership. When founders don't make this shift, growth becomes draining. Every new location adds responsibility. Every expansion adds pressure. The business grows, but the founder's freedom shrinks. And eventually, the company becomes dependent on the very person who was supposed to be freed by the growth. And at that point, scale becomes impossible without burnout. At Empire Franchising, this is one of the most important transitions that we help founders navigate. We help founders move from being the smartest person in the room to being the one who designs the room so others can perform at a high level without constant oversight. We redesign roles, decision flow, and systems so that growth creates leverage instead of stress. Because the companies that scale cleanly are not built on exceptional founders alone. They're built on exceptional systems and teams. And the moment that a founder truly embraces that shift is the real moment that scale becomes possible.